live and back. Welcome back, everyone. Hi, viewers. Oh my God, Justin's excited. Roland's excited. Ɩnternational's excited. Jena's excited. We're excited.
It's like you're making it seem like we haven't been around for like months and months, and it's literally just a week.
Well, we do this once a week. It means a lot to me when I get to see your faces again. I literally just see your faces once a week.
Whose fault is that?
I don't know. Maybe. Well, Justin, should we do a daily show?
Every day.
Do you have time for that?
No.
Daily show?
Okay.
The daily
Well,
show.
for Justin, we don't have time for daily, so once a week. Hi, everyone. Welcome our 4 viewers to the show. Usually we get more. It's okay. It's like the starting 5 minutes. It's like kind of.
That's 1 per person here. We get to have a fantasy draft.
There we go.
Oh, that's legit.
Now, of
So
course, it
I'm
doesn't count that we are probably 1 or 2 of those viewers.
That is true.
Rallon is probably 3 of them, to be fair.
You're not wrong, probably.
Hi, the Lemon, aka Rallon. That's labeled you.
Just like when I had the persona Rallon Storm, I'm actually every single person we have viewing the show, and I'm just controlling them on my 3 monitors that we have in front of me.
That's fair. Hi, Pete. Nice to see ya. Good to see ya.
There you
See,
go.
now people are rolling. Look at that. We got Susan and the hizzy.
There we
Susan
go. We
and
got
the
people
hizzy.
now.
Hi, Susan. Good to see y'all. I think I did say B. Yes. Hi, B. B the Magnificent. Lovely. Thank you, Rallon. Thank you, Rallon, aka the Lemon, for confirming. It is you at this said time and date and space.
Always me.
And of course, our only Twitch channel viewer, Miss Christine. Hi, Christine. I love Christine. She's cool. All right, and ʻOllieman. Oh, okay, you're here. Got it. Confirmed. Thank you. Yeah. So welcome back. We are Sober Podcast. Here we are once again. Last week we had special guest friends of the show, Dig on America. If you haven't already subscribed, check out that video from last week and check out their channel and show. Pretty legit dudes. Very fun to talk to, especially Dutch. He's a little, out there, but he's cool bros. And hopefully we'll get some more special guests coming in the upcoming weeks and months to come. All right. How's your guys this week, man? Everyone cool? Happy Pride Month. Yay. Ally.
Yep.
All right.
I think I'm some sort of gay. If not, I'm an ally. I'm not sure.
All right, Rollin, some sort of gay. How about you? ʻOllieman.
Oh, I'm hetero, but I'm supportive.
Cishet, got it. Justin? Cishet also?
Yes.
Cool. Cishet too. Cool. I know a lot of holidays and stuff have passed, like, Memorial Day was on Monday. So, all those fallen soldiers, we do recognize and think of you. And then also, Tulsa Massacre. That was a thing 100 years ago.
Happening.
I never knew that until this past weekend when it was on the news and President Biden went to Tulsa, Oklahoma to, do such and such and such. Never knew about that.
I was like vaguely aware of it happening, but like just kind of like that. Like when they heard it, I'm like, oh, I think I've heard that before. I didn't know like the date or like how long ago it was or anything about what happened. It's like,
wait, did you really not know?
I didn't know anything about it.
I was going to say more. I was kidding.
I was very concerned.
Were you Fringe?
Yeah. Because I was like, I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before.
Hello. Hi. Nice to see you on in here. You are welcome. Hi, ʻNternational.
So what am I learning from Be No Just Be?
Ooh, what are you learning?
Rollin
just needs to hang out with me.
Referring to.
I'll show you the way of the grasshopper.
I don't know what they're referring to. What am I learning?
See her after the show.
A van's gonna pull up and kidnap me, and I'm just gonna show up at some temple, and they're just gonna teach me stuff, and I don't even know what's gonna go on.
That's how she draws attention to her prey. I'm just kidding. I love you.
I don't know.
It sounds like a kung fu reference, so maybe.
As long as she has candy, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
I mean, as long as they have something to offer you, it should be okay, right? Just take that ride. Hell, you stop walking. No, don't do that, kids. If kids are watching. Anyways, no, I did
watching. Go to bed.
It's well, okay, maybe on the East Coast side it could technically be bedtime, but it's 6:30 here, so well.
It could be any time if you're watching the recording.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
God,
whatever time it is, go to bed. Everyone,
you gotta,
whatever time it is.
Now.
Doesn't matter
what
time, just go to bed.
You got to be inclusive to all time zones.
Exactly. No, there's only the East Coast. No other time zones except for the East Coast.
You are so right, and I apologize. I must practice more inclusivity to whatever time zone it is, whether you are driving, actively walking, at work, handling heavy machinery, go to bed. Just straight up take a nap.
Just go to bed.
Find a bed and go to it.
Yes, it doesn't even have to be yours. Just
That's
go
right.
to the nearest.
Find the closest bed.
Driving by a furniture store, stop and go to bed.
Especially if it's a furniture store, like they have the most top tier cleanest mattresses.
And if they ask any questions, you just look at them straight in the eye and say, "Jenna told me to," and then just go back to sleep.
I approve this
they
message.
Can't argue with that at all.
Now sponsor me, bitches.
Oh, look, so I've added my pronoun, so I guess I'm technically a gay now or something.
Okay, Rallon, they are a gay. Congratulations! Thank you for coming out on the stream as if you.
I represent all of gaydom, of course. I am the pinnacle gay.
Are you said king of the gay?
I'm not king of the gay. I am.
I sound like
the
something
overlord of the gay.
Oh, okay.
That's you've officially reached
the overseer of the gay.
The way that dads communicate.
You know what? This is good because we have a pretty good healthy representation. I am queen of the black.
There you go.
Justin is king of the white. Rallon is king of the gay, and Ɩnternational is king of the Canada.
King of the North.
King of the North.
Hey.
There you go.
That's actually a pretty epic name, King of the North. Like
That is. You know, Game of Thrones, copyrighted it from man himself. So they
had to call him up and ask, and he's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And
they owe you reparations, Ɩnternational.
I asked them for one of those swords though, and they just never delivered.
Damn.
That fucking sucks. They probably assumed you'd probably create a pipe out of it. I don't know. I always want to make a weed reference.
Just drill a hole like down the hilt through the metal of the sword blade, and somehow put weed into that and blow the smoke out the tip of the sword.
Hashtag inclusivity.
There we go.
Moving on.
Speaking of inclusivity.
Yes. Well, let me dial back to some of the chats here because I saw some good points. Susan, I didn't know about the Tulsa Massacre until I watched Watchmen. Oh, yes. I heard a lot of references to that, and all of a sudden it's a thing now. I'm a product of Texas public schools, obviously. Yeah, unfortunately. No, to be quite honest, that was something I did not learn in school growing up, elementary, middle school, high school, even college. So it wasn't until I don't know how it was referenced to me now that I think about it. It was referenced to me through, I was listening to a radio station a few years back. And so it was very recent, where, sometimes commercials, they advertise whatever. And there was one particular commercial where they advertised, showing support for Black owned businesses. So, and then it said something help, revitalize Black Wall Street. And I'm like, revitalize Black Wall Street? What is that? Like, in my mind, Black Wall Street was like a term or a phrase used to represent, Black owned businesses. So I'm like, yeah, more power to that, of course. But once I looked more into it, then I discovered what the meaning of all of that really was, and how much the Tulsa massacre was buried in our history. So much so that it almost has irrelevancy up until now, that it has reached 100-year, earmark in our history now. So now people are more known and aware of what occurred and things like that. And unfortunately for me, like I said, I only just discovered this for myself a few years ago, and that's sad. And I'm sure for most people that, like Susan said, they didn't get reference to it until they watched that show Watchmen.
Yeah.
Now that you mentioned that was in the Watchmen, I remember seeing it there, but
I don't watch the show, so I'm just saying I know from news resources and things like that, or from what people have told me, they did not know of such thing until watching that show.
I went to a predominantly black high school, and I never heard about it until long after.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had the way my like history teacher or history class worked in like junior year was like from the end of the Civil War to like present day. You know, we had to learn all that. And we had a teacher who was like, you have to learn every single sentence of this history book for your test. So like he tested us on like this one dude who was involved in this scandal. I tried to find him. He was like mentioned on one sentence of one page, and that's it, and that was on the test. So I'm sure that like somewhere in the psyche of my brain, from having to like literally memorize the text, when we got to that part about, you know, was it 1912 or so was when it happened, right? Or no, 1921. 1921 was when it happened. I'm sure when we got to that section, there was like at least a paragraph on it or some sort of mention of it. So that's probably where it's kind of like embedded in my mind, but I haven't like looked into the whole history of it, because like it sounds familiar, and I'm not sure where I would have like heard it elsewhere though, except for maybe history class, and it was, you know, if they mentioned some random dude who like did a scandal, I'm sure they mentioned the Tulsa Massacre, at least in some paragraph. That's probably the extent that we went over it.
Yeah, I can't even, just recalling in my mind any kind of small blurb or reference in my, you know, studies growing up, if that was ever something I skimmed across. If anything, the only thing that was majorly talked about, besides, you know, the civil rights movement and everything else prior to that post Reconstruction era, was, you know, an incident involving Emmett Till. So in my mind, at some point I made a connection to where I was thinking about like, oh, was that Emmett Till that had that situation? Why am I echoing? Who's watching the show? So you, ʻOllieman.
It's ʻOllieman.
I haven't muted.
Mute the YouTube.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, thank you. No, so you know, unfortunately, the only way I can make some type of connection to any source of the Tulsa Massacre in 1921 happening was thinking about, you know, like some known slain black individuals like Emmett Till, who was a child, but that wasn't even the person. It was another individual that happened to be in the, I won't say at the wrong place at the wrong time, but that's generally that's how this situation or setup occurred, where, you know, the elevator he was in an elevator with another individual, which was a white woman.
This is not Emmett Till, this is someone else, right?
Right, this is someone else.
Yep.
I was just kind of precluding that. The reference of it just reminded me of it. Kind of a similar situation where Emmett Till was accused of sexually assaulting or hitting on a white woman. You know, same thing. But in this situation, of course, this individual did none of that. It just happened to occur that the elevator malfunctioned, and they were shooken up and frightened. And the black man was caught being seen alone in the elevator with the white woman. So he took off running, fearing for his life, obviously, because, you know, back then it's a no being caught alone with a white woman, especially. And, you know, yeah. So she made a false claim that, you know, she was harassed. So they went after him, eventually caught him, and tried to, you know, press, you know, stupid ass charges, and, you know, proceeded to, you know, it just snowballed into him being slain, and just the uprising of that particular community in Tulsa that, you know, cause them to fight back because of the wrong killing of this individual. And so I think the massacre, the shootings lasted all through the night into the early wee mornings, just, you know, the slaying of innocent black people, and just, you know, mauling away all of their industry and homes and things like that. So, let's see, I think Susan made a reference here. We had an entire year of Texas history in middle school. So again, the product of Texas public school system. Didn't learn a lot. Yeah.
Well, I think there's also there's also something else where the mob that attacked the Tulsa, or it was Green something. I'm sorry, it was, what was the name of the actual town area? It was like Greenbrook or something like that.
Greenbrook.
Yeah, Greenbrook. The people who attacked it were actually like deputized by like the Tulsa police to go and do that. Like
Right.
go and destroy Greenwood. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
But yeah,
Mike.
the New York
Yeah.
Times' daily, they did a really good like historical review of like what happened and what led up to everything, and because they had like kids who were survivors like to speak at the White House, and there was they went through this whole thing on like the people in Tulsa were pretty much like forced themselves to have amnesia about it, because they're like, oh, you're not allowed to report it, and anyone who's there can't talk about it. So for like 50 years, no one knew about it, no one talked about it, or no one who's there talked about it, and no one who like grew up or was born later knew about it because they weren't told about it. And then eventually, like this one kid, I forgot his name, but this one like high schooler like was told it by like his teacher who was a survivor, and so he went on this whole quest to like get a newspaper to release this story about it. So it was this whole ordeal just to get it into the public eye again. This historic event that happened that no one wanted to talk about.
Right. So, Native Atheist, thank you. Hey, Native Atheist, good to see you. I have a book that here in Oklahoma, it says a Black family was lynched for allegedly stealing meat. No, yeah.
You probably find a story about anything. Like
yeah.
Someone getting lynched for, anything, which is
for no apparent reason.
Unfortunate. Or,
right.
Worse than unfortunate, but I can't even think of a word.
Right. But I mean, I didn't want to dive. I'm still echoing. Who has me? Is it you, ʻLlieman? ʻLlieman, I will cut you. No, it's kidding. Thank you. I'm good now.
It's not the stream. It's the microphone feeding into the speakers, or the speakers feeding into the mic. I mean.
Oh, that makes sense. Headphones. That usually helps, I guess. But no, I didn't want to dive too much into it. It's being discussed all over, and I just wanted to make reference and knowledge to it. That the main point is, unfortunately, this is just another example of history that is Black history, that is in itself American history, that continues to be buried, and that there just continues to be some stigma or ill taste when it comes to talking about the wrongs of American history. And we can never get past this state of, systematic racism, people being harmed in the past, not amending for the past, reparations, things like that. We can never get past that if it can never be discussed, ergo never be added to our fucking history books and being taught to people. Because, it's unfortunate for myself as a Black woman to not know of this. I mean, obviously I have no family member of that was born in or around that area. I'm sure, if I had older living relatives, they may have knowledge of it and may have told me about it, maybe. But I certainly don't have that now. And so it's unfortunate that we lose this bit of history that's important and vital to know. And it's even more so to understand why, Black-owned businesses and Black communities as a whole are suffer because of the loss of what they had in 1921. So that's all I wanted to say. Any final words? Now kind of move on to what we really will discuss. And I have screenshots. Yay! Jena came prepared. Justin, ʻLlieman, Rallon?
Oh, all you.
All you, yeah.
Uh-oh.
I just want to add that being picked up on the speaker, but the Tulsa Massacre is not the last massacre or mass killing. So I mean, it's like
you're right.
It's good to be aware of that and know about it, but when people are trying to kind of whitewash history and say, oh, these bad things happened long ago, we get to something like this that happened 100 years ago, you can go, okay, well, that was 100 years ago. You know what I mean? But it didn't stop there, right? It's important to recognize that these things just kept happening. That was a very famous one, now famous, that was kind of swept under the rug for a long time and not recognized for a long time. But you know, it's easy to accept that because there's more time has passed. They're going to be more acceptant of something that has happened 100 years ago. But you know, we've had um, mass killings as recently as Dylan Roof killing 9 people in a black church.
Right.
Um, it's not as big as this or as systemic, but it's still happening.
Exactly. No, you're very right about that. Certainly wasn't the last. Certainly wasn't the first. So it just given the recentness of the
Hmm.
landmark of it, whatever. But you're definitely right. Thank you, Justin. Final word here with Susan. The idea of American exceptionalism, excuse me, used to be used in a mocking sense. The whole America can do no wrong. America is amazing, blah blah blah. Thing has been co-opted by white nationalists. Fair point. Very eloquently stated. Thank you, Susan. But moving on, I posed a question to our Twitter, and if you're not following the show on Twitter, please do so at we_sober. You can follow, make comments, additional conversations. I'll try to be more adamant about posing different topic ideas or questions just to get more of a involvement from our followers and community. So we appreciate you. So this is just one example of doing that so that we can display your responses here on the show. So it's just our own active way of communicating to you while we host this live show every Thursday evening. So the question that I shared on our Twitter for the show. Let me just go ahead and bring it up here. Let's see if I can find it. This is new technology for me, so bear with me. It's not, but I'm just slow. I'm a slow learner sometimes. Okay, here we go.
Very fancy.
So thank you. I worked hard at, using the snipping tool. Anyways, I posted this question, I think earlier this week. Pretty much, do you think the atheist online community can be a bit toxic? If so, why? And so the reason behind me posing this question was because lately I've noticed a lot of atheist podcasters either giving up their channels, leaving, going more silent, and or converting back to religion. And so in the midst of all that, there seems to be some type of toxic air that occurs when it comes to those that used to follow, subscribe, donate, support, things like that to their channels. And it's unfortunate that sometimes the wheels turn where they're met with vitriol and they're met with, unforeseen or maybe foreseen consequences to their rapid, sometimes it appears rapid decisions in either whatever type of idea or opinion, whether they lean more right or left, whatever it could be, or even falling back to a religion, whatever the circumstance. It is unfortunate that I see that some, not all, but some within the atheist community tend to take on the characteristic of when one leaves or deconverts from religion, and they're met with that same type of, I guess you can say, backlash from family, from their previous religious community, church, what have you, friends, whatever. So that's why I had some interest in posing this question. I'll display one of the responses here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, my handiwork. One of the responses here from Mathew Randall. He is actually one of our moderators and is in the chat. Hi, Mathew. I'll go ahead and read it. It says, yes, the atheist community can in fact be very toxic. I'm part of a group on the Facebook called Normalizing Atheism, which is also kind of a bridge from the now was named Tart, now named Tang podcast, friends of the show too. We strive to have a very civil discourse with not only theist members and atheist members as well, because atheists can be very toxic to both. We are a group that tries to seek to understand and not belittle anyone, no matter what you believe or disbelieve in. Any opinions?
For me, I think it's becoming increasingly apparent within these types of communities, atheism, pro-science, pro-vaccine, pro climate change, whatever it may be, that being more inclusive in terms of trying to communicate with people as equals, or just maybe just being unaware and listening to their side of the argument rather than just beating facts, into them is more productive. And trying to have more productive conversations rather than just pushing out information and saying, "Here's the facts, just accept it." You know what I mean? Um, and that's the same thing with atheists and theists and stuff. It's um, I think with most of these topics, you've kind of reached the majority of the people you're going to reach with just here's the facts laid out.
Sure.
This is what reality is. So you gotta start taking that a step forward and reaching people who aren't willing to just take those at face value.
Yeah, I mean, part of it, I think it comes from this idea of like, well, I've determined that atheism is the right answer, or I've determined that theism is the right answer. Because I am right, anyone who doesn't agree with what I say is completely wrong and needs to be told what's right. And some, having a conversation with someone takes patience and time, so it's much easier to just be really, harsh towards them. So, yeah, I think the whole thing with, again, a lot of the atheists are like, oh, I've determined that atheism is true, therefore, like, I'm the superior smart one, and, I've figured it all out, and these theists are just idiots who don't know what's going on. And it's like, that's not helpful. Like, and
right.
Just because you're an atheist doesn't mean that you're, like you've become like the all-knowing, intelligent person. Like, I don't think that, and I become an atheist, and I'm just like, I don't know anything. But you got to keep learning and keep talking to people and like hearing their perspective and understanding their point of view, even if you think that their reasoning is wrong, because what the reasoning they apply to their theism might be the same reasoning you apply to other things that aren't theism, but you still kind of come to the same conclusion, or you use the same method of thinking to come to a conclusion that's not necessarily what other people would come to.
No, that's a fair point. That's a very fair point. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, hold on. Can we fix this echoing problem? I don't know exactly where it's coming from, but it's really annoying.
Let's see.
I have my volume turned down so low on my speakers I can barely hear you guys, so I don't think it's me.
Hello?
Is it me? I mean, I have.
Now I don't.
Okay. I don't know what happened. It got really. I have a background that sounds really. Now I hear the echo again.
You hear the echo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about we just have it that if you're talking, just mute yourself.
Yeah. Now I don't hear it.
It's not echoing now.
Okay. Okay, we're good? We're good. Let me just dive back in the chat because I know there was a lot of comments here. So first one from Susan. Oh, wait. Yeah, Susan. Okay. If atheists wonder why the movement is mostly cishet white men, take a look at assholes like Richard Carrier, Michael Shermer, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and David Silverman. They're awful people.
Well, the thing is, like, they're they probably have good reasoned arguments for like why they are atheists and ways of thinking of other perspectives. It's just that, like, when it comes to, again, other claims, they're like, oh, I'm not going to use that exact thinking that I used with atheism. I'm going to either look at it a different way or not look at it the way that everyone says you should look at it. I'm just going to stick with my guns and what I think it is. So like, again, it's like, saying they're awful. It's like, well, they still came to like, they could still have some manner of thinking that is that works and is probably the best manner of thinking. They just don't apply it to everything, and which results in them coming to poor conclusions.
Poor conclusions. No, that's a fair point, because I know there was a lot of uproar with the tweets from Richard Dawkins regarding trans folks. So to that point, I can understand if someone states something falsely the first time, or they don't necessarily have all the correct information and they either misspoke, or they state something that they thought was the idea but they're wrong, and then they have the willingness to accept they're wrong and make corrections to that and openly listen to those from that side, or from that perspective, I should say, and correct themselves and learn. But the repeated notion of always, posting or saying the same bullshit after people attempt to try to correct you and make you understand that's just inaccurate, that, for one, displays your unwillingness to change, because we all have to change. Change is fluid. Change is always occurring. If you stay the same, I think one quote from, I think Stitics once said this, or somebody, I'm just going to say Stitics, why not? Stitics said once to a general chat or in writing that if every 6 months you're the same person, then there's something wrong. And I'm like, okay, well, you're giving some a certain timeline of things, but I do understand the concept. The concept is, if you're not consistently trying to grow, learn different perspectives, understand different views, and have a willingness to change and welcome in new information or things that you weren't as fluid on and maybe someone else is, then I think there's something wrong with that. Having that willingness to change should be an open, inclusive thing to do. And also, Catholic traditionalists, hi. Whatever questions you pose, I'm not going to post them, but if you're going to stick to the topic, then by all means, that's fine. Other than that, mods, if they continue to be disruptive, go ahead and do your thing. Anyways, more comments here.
Well, before we move on from that, what exactly was the words here?
Which one?
Anyways, yeah, so the atheist movement is mostly cishet white men, and it's I had a conversation kind of related to this recently, is that this particular group of like this older white men, they don't have a lot of other things or other problems going on, so they can look at this in an abstract way, philosophically, and come up with these arguments and these do formal debates and all that stuff, because this is like the only thing that affects them. Now, obviously, being an atheist is very dangerous for a lot of people in a lot of areas. But we see the ones that rise to prominence are the ones who otherwise have very little to fear, or very little harm would come to them otherwise. So they get into this position where they feel like they're just standing up for people and being the face of it all, and I have to do this. Like, it's like almost like a savior thing. And I think you get enough support and enough people following you that it's easy to become dogmatic, and there's enough people supporting you and agreeing with you, no matter how wrong you start to become and you drift off track, that you get very dogmatic and stuck in your ways, and there's not enough pressure to change or to update your beliefs, because you've already grown this huge audience and huge support group that'll support you no matter what you say. So it's and most of the people that are these prominent atheists have been so for quite some time now. And they've been propped up for 5, 10, 15, 20 years now as like the face of, online, atheist activism.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
it's gonna take getting other people in front of the camera, other people going viral, other people doing debates, other people doing this, to start diversifying those views and developing enough movement to push back against the people that really just don't have the perspective to talk about what they're talking about.
But is there room for new people?
There has to be, and there is. It's just you have to. It's tough because in the beginning, 15 years ago, like when things like AXP was first coming out, when Matt Dillahunty was going viral, when Sam Harris was going viral, when Christopher Hitchens was like the only, like, if you went on YouTube when it first came out and you wanted to look up atheists or anti-religious arguments, there was only a handful of people. There was 3, 4, 5 people that were of inequality.
Right.
It was so bad in the beginning that even like the Amazing Atheist had 1 million followers or whatever, just because he's like the only one there, right? Yeah. So it's just gonna take time and building up these other personalities, to kind of push back against something that's been a pretty big stronghold for quite a while now.
Yeah. It does take time. Because, well, no, that's it. It does take time. Hi, Multi.
Hello.
Hey,
How are you
what's
this
going on?
evening?
Okay, just finished up the Q&A.
Sweet beans. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you. Oh,
Thank
yes.
you.
Rallon.
I was just saying the same thing, like, back in the day, like how many people could have like a talk show on TV or online?
Yeah.
How many people could, have had the option or opportunity to stream stuff online? Now pretty much like everybody who has a smartphone or some sort of computer or, anything can stream on Twitch, can stream on YouTube, can upload things to YouTube. It might not be like the highest quality, but like nowadays if you're really trying to find like a gay trans, like a trans black atheist, you could probably find one. They might not be like super prominent, but you could probably find one somewhere, and you
gotta dig.
You gotta dig, and you can find them. And once but now it's a lot easier for someone to be like, oh, I know so and so who falls into this category. You can, you have Twitter, you can share them on there. You could just Google and you can find those people. You just gotta like look for it. Whereas before it was like, well, I'm looking for an atheist, and all I have are these people, so I guess that's who I'm gonna stick with.
Yeah.
And yep.
No, it's true. Even when I, started I guess close to 2 years ago, for me to figure out and know that, oh, there are black atheists, black females at that too, that are atheists, like that in my mind, it was unusual because the culture of, the black community is so entrenched drenched in religion, more specifically more than some others, Christianity. I should say, I shouldn't say more specifically because obviously there are others, but more heavily it is Christian. But yes, very good.
Around here, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
There was another comment that I saw, and then I'll move on to the other responses that we got on Twitter. Trying to skim through here. The lemon. That being said, oh, did I miss another portion of what you said, honey? Probably. Okay, that's the one. When the only thing that really connects us is a disbelief in God, differing opinions and toxicity can be much more prevalent in our community. That being said, I think it's more the people that I meet that are level headed and kind than the ones who are toxic. I have made many good friends in the community and wouldn't trade it for anything. Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
But yeah,
And I
Lemon,
can
Lemon
echo
makes
that.
a
That
good
sounds
point.
right.
Yeah, Lemon makes
Yeah.
a good point where it's like, you could be an atheist because you were never brought up with the religion. You could be an atheist because you actually like reasoned and figured it out. You could be an atheist because you think the whole thing's a huge conspiracy by like, some other weird creature. But it's like that doesn't mean anything. You can all be atheists. There's conservative atheists and liberal atheists and atheists who don't care about politics. So just the fact that you're atheist doesn't mean anything. Like you could pick probably 2 people out of the atheist like community, and they could be totally different from each other. but as opposed to like a democratic group, it's like, well, you all kind of have like some sort of basic values because you're all part of this like Democrat Party affiliation. You have to have some things to agree with, or why would you consider yourself a Democrat? So if you have certain things you agree with, then you're probably a certain type of person, as opposed to atheists, where it's just like, just because you don't believe in God, that doesn't really mean much.
What
Yeah.
do you think are the three most prevalent reasons, mindsets that you could put atheists into? If there's the rational humanist, right?
Okay.
There's the I was raised secular.
And clearly, we're all the rational,
of course,
humanists.
Skeptics.
Clearly.
We're all the perfect, rational, skeptical humanists. There's nothing wrong with us, and we're
100% grade A American beef and
I have
Canadian
a problem with the word perfect.
and beef.
and beef.
Well, I think the third one would probably just be like people who are just angry, at just kind of angry at the whole idea of religion, what it's done. They might not
Problem
believe,
of suffering.
Yeah.
Mm.
The problem of suffering is a big one, I think, for people that I've known. I've asked, what is the one thing, if you had to say, what was it that made it not make any sense? And that was, the problem with suffering, the problem of suffering.
Mm.
It's
And
in a
you said
commercial from the 80s, Matthew.
Suffering?
The beef.
Oh,
Isn't
oh,
this a
the beef.
Wendy's commercial?
Yes, it's a Wendy's commercial.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sponsor is Wendy's. Okay.
Speaking,
yeah.
what you were talking about, Malty, is so we often push back against the idea that atheists just want to sin, atheists just want to hate God or whatever. But really, it's not that they hate God, but there are a lot of people who are atheists who found out that they were lied to or deceived, or there's this one thing that triggered a snowball effect that led them out of their belief. They legitimately are mad. They're upset about that they didn't do the things they wanted to do, or they were told no, or they couldn't be who they wanted to be, or their parents lied to them, or the church lied to them, or whatever it is. So there's a lot of people that kind of like almost do fit the stereotype, but not because they're mad at God, but they're mad at the whole conversation, the whole industry, industry, whatever you want to call it. So that
They're mad at
I
the
don't know if
wrongs
that's
religion did them.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's like a reason that people are an atheist, but that's just a landing point that a lot of people find themselves in when they first get out. But I think you said the people that come for rational reasons or that never believed to begin with. What was there a third one that you were going to mention?
No, I
yeah.
think I had those two kind of primed up, but if there's a third one that anybody else can think of, I guess that's the three was what the problem with evil, rational skeptic, and I just raised secular.
Yeah, what I find interesting to me is because
those two are the same.
I was never indoctrinated. I never went to church. I never believed. And with that being the case, I find it nearly impossible, virtually impossible for someone to bring an argument to me that would convince me to believe, right? Just on an argument alone. Or a proposition, a series of arguments, no matter how sound the logic might seem, I'm not just going to start believing tomorrow, right? And I think on the flip side of that is people who were brought up believing and were really indoctrinated, and this is how they lived their entire life. It's strange to think that they're just one good argument away from no longer believing or just changing their whole worldview. And we try. I don't know what else you do, but I know what it would take I have an idea what it would take to convince me. And it's far more than just talking to people on the internet or something.
Right.
Yeah, I actually I've heard a lot of times people ask people on the atheist atheist experience or talk heathen, like what evidence would need to be provided to you for you to believe in God? And a lot of times they just say, well, God would know, or I don't know. So I actually thought, and like I sat and thought about like what precisely would need to be done. And I'm like, well, I would require a lot of testing and a lot of things that the person would need to be done. And just from the idea of what this creature is that wants us to just obey, they would not tolerate my questions and my testing. So it's kind of like I'll have
The
Yeah.
Old Testament God wouldn't be very wouldn't be
Yeah.
ready for that.
I'll be like, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, I need you to show me this and this and this and answer these questions and this and this. And I'm like, this, unless this is totally different than what the Bible God said, I do not think that they would be very tolerant of what all these questions I was asking.
Put it
or all
in a
the
math
evidence I would
equation,
require.
make a graph. All right, very good points. Let me move on to the other responses that we had here. Give me one moment. I'll share the screen again. Okay, here we go. Nope, there it is.
There you go.
All right. As our lovely Susan, who's already in the chat, already lovely stated, very. Internet atheists can be some of the most dogmatic assholes around, myself included.
It's true. Some of them are so full of
At
themselves.
least they know themselves.
Yeah, at least, thank you. At least they know themselves. Another response. Hold on.
Dogmatic, huh?
I mean,
Some can be.
I would assume. Correct me if I'm wrong, Susan. She may not. She may be using it as colloquially.
Colloquially.
Okay.
Thank you. I can't talk anymore. All right, still talking.
But
Moving on.
no, I mean we are very dogmatic. I mean,
Mhm.
definitionally, there's.
Mhm.
I mean, not everybody, obviously, but there's definitely a large group of people that says, look, I don't, believe in magic. I don't believe in blah blah blah. I don't believe in, Sky Daddy in the sky.
Mhm.
And then when they get pressed about it and start kind of digging into why they don't believe in stuff, there's no interest in defending your position or having like an intellectual conversation about it or justifying your beliefs or your positions. It's just that I don't believe because, it doesn't make sense to me, or, adults let go of their fairy tales type brushing away of the argument. I mean, that's dogmatism of,
Okay.
I have this belief, and I'm going to believe it like 100% or very strongly, but I don't have to give like a sufficient, justification or rationalization for it.
Eloquently said. Another comment here from David. This is Simply Secular Dave. Yes, it is a hazard of the nature of the topic when people dig in on their opinions and their opinions are opposites. There can easily and quickly be a degradation of the level of politeness in the interactions, especially online. And I purposely cut it off to that simple fact. And that's true, and to some degree. Any thoughts behind that? I know. Oh, go ahead, Multi. I'm sorry.
There can be. Yeah, sometimes. I definitely, there was a point in time where I was more of a Firebrand atheist. And if I got triggered, I definitely would, if I feel like somebody was playing their Christian YouTube channel at work too loud, I'm like, hey, I got a headache. You might turn that off or put on some earbuds. I don't need to hear about your wanting to blast, what is it, Dad? Oh gosh, it was horrid. But anyway, yeah, I don't know.
I know I had that this morning where I walked into work and I guess so I go into work like earlier than most people because I'm just an earlier person, and there's someone there who I guess also wasn't expecting someone to be there early, and so they were like not loudly but like listening on their speakers to like a sermon or something, and I was walking in just as I was listening to like the nonprofits or something or one of the atheist shows on my headphones, and I'm like, maybe I should just start putting these on my speaker, and if they hear someone say stuff, be like, what do you, or if they ask like, what are you listening to? Oh, just an atheist show. Like, what?
No, that's so true. Like, I know, usually sometimes I come in, same as you. I come into work sometimes with my headphones, and I'm already either listening to a podcast I'm trying to catch up on, or what have you, or something related to it being like something secular or atheist community related. And then I have an office mate that is, a hard ass Christian, has his little mini study book Bible on his desk, and
Mm,
like little reference sheets of like gospel conferences. And there was on occasion that he would like kind of a low simmer play on off of his phone, like what is it, Christian rock, there you go. And I would hear it, and I would recognize the music and stuff. I'm like, fucking really? But that's exactly, secular, simply secular Dave's point. We automatically get intolerant of believers, whatever, poster, music, statements, blah blah blah. And especially the one thing that I've realized most people, or some people I've noticed, become triggered when others kindly say, "Oh, I'll pray for you." That's a simple trigger of someone that's like, "Well, no, fuck you. That has no use for me." But I've always taken that as their way of saying, I have you in my thoughts. I hope things are turn out well. General sayings that most will have. And I take that into consideration, because they can't actively and or well, they could proactively do help or whatever, depending on the situation, but they cannot actively, when they say, I'll pray for you out of some goodness of their sky daddy to do something, obviously shit's not going to happen. And, whether it does or it doesn't, it was God breathed or God sent, or it was under God's plan, or whatever the excuse is. But I still keep in mind when, and I get it all the time, when that is said to me. And I've learned, just as you, Multi, when you said you were a firebrand, I've learned to kind of not be so hard wired into reacting negatively or out of anger or being triggered in the least bit. I mean, it may cause a little cringe, like, okay, but I just say, okay, well, thank you for being so kind to think about me, and I hope I, get well, or whatever the case may be.
mm-hmm,
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I mean, where I live, like religion exists, but people are not like super overtly about it. Like they're not like, you know, saying it all over the place, and it's not like thrown in your face a lot. And so, my tactic would be if anyone just said something religious to me or like anything along those lines, I would just kind of respond matter of fact, like, no, I'm not gonna, like, if someone's like, are you gonna pray on it? I'm like, no, I'm not going to. I don't believe, like, just kind of be matter of fact about it without being
Sometimes I do
a
that too.
jerk. I try, like, it hasn't come, again, I live in an area that's not very like open, or doesn't like throw it in your face a lot. Like, yeah, I'm sure probably everybody in my office is a believer in something. Like they're either, Jewish or Christian in some sense. But like, they're not like, it's not like we have Bible studies or they're like constantly praying for me or anything. It's just
I
like,
don't know. I
I
don't know
mean,
with your I don't know what is the age demographic of your office? Is it mostly 30 and under, or
it's
mostly boomers, or?
it's like it's kind of funny because it's like tiered, where it's like there's two who are like in their 70s, two who are
Mm-hmm.
like in their 50s, two who are in like their 30s, maybe early 40s, and there's a bunch that are a lot older, that they're not like in the tiered hierarchy or whatever. I'm the youngest, but probably by like 8 to 10 years maybe. But
Mm,
it's a range of ages.
okay,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking, if it is younger, then maybe you might be getting a 30% none.
I
But
mean,
if they're mostly older, I don't know.
like probably a big chunk of my office is Jewish, so I don't know if they're
Ah,
like religious Jewish or secular Jewish. Like I think one of them like mentioned heaven, so I'm guessing that he's religious in some sense. And I'm like, but it's not like thrown in their face. Like, they'll mention, oh, we can't do anything this day because we can't schedule anything for this day because it's a Jewish holiday. And I'm like, okay, but that's like
Yeah.
most. They're not like, asking me, have you read your Torah lately? And I'd be like, I've never read the Torah, so no. I am 27 years behind on reading the Torah.
They did not. It was not a. Yeah, it's nice to know that that was not a prerequisite for you to be hired on.
I mean, I think my last name might have been somewhat of a like nudge to hire me, but I'm not going to say no to a job.
I would definitely hire a Wolfheart.
I would too. That was a
part of me
name.
wants to go by my actual last name. I part of me wants to change my name to this because it just sounds really awesome. But
it is a power name.
It is.
And they'll be like, "Is that is that what the name you were born with?" I'm like, "Do you think that like I guess I could make something up and be like, yes, we're descended from the long line of the Wolfhearts and Rallon."
The New England Wolfhearts, right?
Of course, yeah. Well, the name Rallon is from a word with it's Fallon or fallen or something, but it like Fallon means like leader or something. I just put an R in front of it instead because I looked up a name like a while ago and just made it an R, so it's sort of based on a name.
Okay.
But
thank you. Yeah. I like that.
There.
That's a good way to come up with a lot of D&D character names.
There you
go. That's true. That's very true. I like it. Some other comments here. I especially like this one from Christian. Let me pull it up here and share my screen. Oh, I'm getting so good at this. Okay. I see it as no big surprise that a group of people who have been traumatized, oppressed, tyrannized, and abused for most of their lives and finally broke free can be a bit touchy about certain things. I am like that myself. I think it would be better, more accepting, and prudent to not carry a grudge against people who are responding to severe trauma. Not everybody are equally fair in their recovery. It is important to keep in mind. That is very solid. Thank you, Christian. Very solid. I think just to dial back before this comment from Christian, I actually do recall a recent interaction through text. So I wish I could have saw that person's reactionary face, but it was through text where still kind of a coworker, but they don't work in the same department. We were texting, just catching up on how the said and said department was doing, and then I was expressing like, oh, the last couple of weeks have been like so freaking rough. So I was kind of like, venting about that with them. And they were saying, well, I know I've been going through the same, yada, 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 but I know God has us both or whatever. And I was like, well, I responded, of course I like cutely smirked. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. I just responded, yeah, I do understand that's your belief. So it's appreciated. And then they're like, oh, I'm sorry. What faith are you from? And I'm like, I have no faith. I'm an atheist. And then they're like, oh, I see. That's a shame. And I'm like, well, I don't necessarily see it that way, but I appreciate your initial, response or your initial concern. That's what I said. And then it was dead for a while with the text messages, and then they moved on to something else.
Yeah, that just brings me back to something you said earlier when, like, walking into the office, you hear the person playing the Christian radio or stuff like that. They feel perfectly free to do that. But if you were to stand up and say, well, no, I'd rather not listen to Christian music or anything religious related, they're going to look down their nose at you right away. That does happen a lot. So it's a shame, because that's the type of thing that provokes a response in me, is if somebody starts treating me like that, then that'll get me heated.
Yeah,
that's just when that's when you just crank up the like the Dan Barker like anti-religious music just really loudly in your office. Yeah, like I was like listening to stuff I was listening to like podcasts on my phone, like on speaker or whatever, and I was just like, I mean, if someone comes in to talk to me about something, I'll turn it off. But if they're like walking by my office and they hear what I'm listening to and they're curious or they want to ask, or they're like offended, I'd be like, well, you don't have to listen to it. I'm at the far end of the office. You don't have to hear it, or I'll put it down. But like, some part of me hopes that they listen and are able to,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and are like, oh, what are you listening to, and want to start a conversation. But again, it's like in my area, they're not. People are
Yeah.
religious, but they're not in your face religious. So it's like they might just be
Yeah.
like, okay, you're allowed to do that, and I'm like, all right.
Yeah, I really try not to, especially in the workplace, because
Yep.
talking about politics, religion, things like that.
Mhm.
Sometimes even about personal lives can get a bit, fishy. So I've only came out as atheist to like maybe one or two coworkers that I'm kind of close with, but that was over like a year ago, and they've kind of maybe like phased out of their minds, and we're still cool and stuff. So, but back to Christian's point in regards to people deconverting and coming out of recovery. Yes, people have different recovery times. It can be really fresh where they're just fine and they just become an angry atheist or what have you, or maybe they're just neutral and chill and be like, whatever, this doesn't faze me, and just move on with their lives. Or it can be licks of time, months, years, where people still hold on to that trauma, the grief of falling out of faith because of whatever traumatic experience or non-traumatic experience that led them to come out of that belief. It takes time for a person to heal themselves from all of that. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, sometimes their responses to people that are believers that approach them that say, oh, little small things like, I'll pray for you, or, thoughts and prayers, or, what faith are you from, blah, blah, blah. And then there's that instant bite back like, fuck religion, or I don't believe, why would you do that? Or God, your God is stupid, or whatever type of, negative response there could be based on whatever they said.
Well, it probably has a lot to do with their support group as well. I mean, some
Mm.
people
Mhm.
some people find their way out or become irreligious, and we might hear from them years later. "Oh, I know a community existed, or there's nobody like that in my town, or I thought I was alone. So it probably depends on what influences they have from their community. I mean, if their only experience with atheism is people in their church um, saying atheists are evil or bad people, and kind of trash talking and talking down, and then they become that person that they're the only group that they know has talked down about, their
Yeah.
whole life. I mean, how else are they going to respond? Because they've already feel like they're on the defensive end immediately all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So when you feel like you're backed into a corner and you don't have any support, you're going to lash out.
Well, no, you're barely spoken about that.
Yeah, I know very
Mhm.
few atheists in my own community here, but just recently I found out somebody that I've known for years is an atheist, just because I happen to be talking about coming on this show and what we talk about sometimes. And he said, "Oh, really?" And then we got talking about it, and he said, "Yeah, that's pretty much the same way I am too." He was like, he admitted to being an atheist too, so it was kind of neat. But like I said, we've known each other for years, but the topics just never come up because it's kind of a taboo topic to talk about.
Yeah, it is,
Well,
unfortunately. Oh, go for
telling
it.
everybody that you're some sort of super Christian is not taboo. So as long as
That's
they
right.
don't do
That
that,
is so true.
as long as they
Yeah.
don't do that, I'm usually pretty good with it. I don't care
No.
what you believe. I mean, to some extent, but it. I think that most people that are like staunchly Christian or religious, they'll let you know sooner or later.
Yeah, there always seems to be that couple of them. They when you're new to the group, they want to find out if you're in one of the in crowd, right? Are you one of
Mm.
us? They come over and make yeah, really. It's just it is so creepy, and I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yeah. What was
But
it?
You're
What was
part
the
of the
thing
inner
that was
circle atheist.
there? You. Thank you. Rollin. You're good. You're
Inner
so good.
circle.
I was gonna say, what was that coin thing from Canadian Catholic? Inner circle atheist. Ah, shit. I remember that when that
mhm.
crap started.
One day we will get
Oh,
our
God.
our atheists or inner circle atheists
I'm
robes, and we will be part of
waiting.
it.
I have my membership dues. Come on.
Yep.
Hold on,
I
I'll
need my medal.
put my PayPal on the screen for anybody who wants to join.
By all means, please
Pay your
send us
dues
money.
here. And send him all of the information, which includes your mother's maiden name, social security number, birth date.
All of
That's
our
just-
lovely
that's-
viewers in
those-
the chat.
That just reminds me of those Facebook games, questionnaires that people keep playing, and it's just a huge game of social engineering. I'm like, we are all screwed. This is how identity theft happens.
Exactly.
I just
No,
like the
we're-
ones where it's like, here's a scenario, and the top 6 people are these characters or something in your Facebook, and it's just fun to do those.
Well,
things.
there's always
Do that.
there's ones that are like, oh, what were you doing when you were 16? And you write your high school name on there. Who is your best friend? And you write your childhood best friend is always a security question.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's the model of your first car? What was your first pet's name? And those are in these
What's your
questions.
favorite sport?
Yeah.
Sports
I have
team.
too many.
Yeah.
I have too many of those.
Yeah, and I'm always I scroll and I see them and I'm like, no, how do I
Don't
stop
answer.
this?
Stop answering.
Because you
them.
always answer monkey biscuits.
Monkey biscuit.
What's your first car? What was the make and model of your first car? Monkey
And
biscuits.
now I know Maltese password.
Now we're gonna get into Maltese everything.
That's right. Except the B is a P.
Dang.
Usually number 9,
Yeah. I want to run through the last 2 that I have here, and then we'll kind of wrap up. These were really good points that we had from friends of the show, maybe. I don't know. Okay, pulled up the screen. All right. Jenna's getting good at this. I might just do this every week, y'all. Oops, lost the screen. Okay, here we go. All right. Puck, one of the co-hosts of the nonprofits and also Truth Wanted, he did respond and said, toxicity is intersectional. There's nothing about being an atheist that makes one automatically non-toxic. The thing about bringing up specific examples, though, is that it just makes the situation worse. So I tend to either let it go or address it privately. And one other comment from Tangel, moderator extraordinaire and all over the place individual. Well, I'm not sure if I think she meant to say if. I'm not sure if the atheist community, as much as the privileged philosophers among us, I've noticed a distinct scorn towards those unfamiliar with philosophical concepts. Oh, okay, yes, which I find incredibly privileged and unhelpful to the average atheist. This was actually to speak on this really quick, thank you, Tangel, is that was something that I was hard met with when I first joined the ACA server way back when. And, initially within that first month, if you guys recall, we had a lot of those philosophical trolls and stuff like that would pretty much talk as if they're talking down to everyone, thinking that, oh, you're supposed to know this philosophical argument, P equals Q plus V, blah, 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 blah. And when you hear that, especially when I've never taken a philosophy class ever in my life or adult life, and you hear this almost like mathematical-esque conversation to explain their either belief or disbelief or proof of or non-proof of a god. I don't know which, because I still don't understand. But when you initially are met with that coming out, it's almost not only intimidating, but it's kind of like, well, you almost feel like you have to learn this stuff. Like, do I have to just take a class of philosophy, go out and buy a textbook? Like, is this like a hard prerequisite of me becoming an atheist? Like,
oh, you have to know Kant. Yeah, first,
Kant, of course. I can hear tub thumping already.
What was the other one?
But we talked about that a bit earlier, in that there's a group of people, mostly white men, who see atheism as an intellectual pursuit, and we're here to have debates and intellectual conversations and talk about philosophers, and it's more of like an educational thing of like digging deep into a topic, and not as a a group of persecuted individuals who are just trying to escape from harm. So there's definitely multiple ways to get there, and it's and there's different positions within it in terms of how you're affected by your belief system and what it means to you, and what it means to be able to defend it, intellectually, or justify it and this and that, or people that are just literally just trying to escape some other harmful system.
No, you're very right. Any other comments about that? For the record, I still don't know any philosophy.
I've taken like philosophy courses in undergrad, but most of them were just kind of like thinking about, like one of them was like moral contemporary issues, which you went over kind of like the trolley problem, and then would like, okay, so if you would save if you would save one person, or if you would kill one person to save 5, okay, what if you have 5 people who are sick and each need a different organ? Would you kill this one person who's a match for all of them to save those 5? And it's like, those sort of things is what I mostly discussed. And
I literally had this conversation a few days ago. Yeah, about the trolley problem. Yeah. Literally.
Trolley problem. Trolley problem.
Tons of Mice has a BA in philosophy and uses it to make memes.
They're the extra. They're the expert of all of us.
I can never hate Tons of Mice. Everyone else, no.
And he knows how to frame a house. And that's quality skills right there.
And yes, it is. Thank you, Wolfie.
You know what you can do after you frame a house?
Oh my
You
god.
can put windows in.
No.
Wait. Don't you say a goddamn word until I put this up. There we go. We haven't had this second in a while. Please, tell us what we can do after you frame a house.
I was just going to say you can put windows in, that's all.
And that has been Malty knows a little bit of everything about everything.
Woo! Fun part about his segment, it's always really quick. But thank you, Walty. I love
Ouch.
it. Yes, you can always put windows in it too. Yes, Randolph. I remember the trolley. Yes, you were. Yeah, you were in that conversation. Thank you, Randolph. I think my answer was that it's a trap. There is no right. It's a trap. Yeah. There is no right answer because you're left. Okay, no, actually, better. Instead of my answer, this was better. This is actually Mikey's answer to it because he was in the conversation too. He pretty much stated that not only is it a trap, but you are designating that said person that has to make a decision to actively take a role into steering whether they hit the 5 individuals or they hit the one person, rather than just letting them not do anything at all and let it just happen, and whatever happens.
It's not
you
that
did
it's
not
a trap.
actively met that decision.
It's not that it's a trap, but not acting is a decision to not act, right? So not acting is an option, but it's generally talked about as if you chose to not act. You know what I mean? It's not like you're too far away and you can't physically get there in time to do something, but in the proposition in the conversation, that is one of the options, is to not do anything. And but so if you pull the lever and it moves and you kill one person and save 5, but you're actually making the action versus not pulling the lever, doing nothing, and 5 people die and you save 1, but so you were hands off, you didn't do anything wrong, right or wrong, but more people died due to your inaction. So that's the problem.
I need you to respond back to Mikey about that. See what he says. Because I actually, and to a degree, agreed with him when he said that. Well, go ahead, ʻOllieman.
If you chose to do nothing and the 5 people died, did you really save the one person? Because you really just chose to do nothing.
Well, it's not that you saved it, but it was a intentional trade-off, right? That's the point.
Pull the lever, Kronk. I know where that's from, Lemon. I just can't fucking remember it right now. That is a very interesting perspective. I want to hold on to that and show Mikey and see what he responds to. And let's see if we can have a battle of the minds.
All right.
So, what if you didn't pull the lever, but then you went over to the one person and killed them too?
You know what?
Wait a second.
That is a very good question for the after show, because we are out of time.
For a D&D show.
I said after show. Well, D&D too, whatever. Yes. Thank you, ʻOllieman, for leading us into our after show with that amazing question. Please, audience, if you have not already joined our server, please do at tiny.cc/IFDC, and we will save ʻOllieman's brilliant question to all of you to talk to us about, discuss, enthuse us with your responses, and whatever. Grab a snack. Come right back. Final word.
Is that
That's our sign off. Nope, we're done.
We got
What? Stream now.
What was that?
Grab a snack, come right back.
IFWAS.
Okay, bye.
Okay, I'm trying new things. I don't know. I don't know.
We'll workshop it.
Grab a
All
beer, then come near.
Hey.
Woo! Grab your weed and take a
seed. I don't know.
seed. Okay, I try. Thank you, Rallon, for
All right.
All right.
We're trying.
We're done. Thank you so much for joining us. Tune in next week. I will pose maybe another question, or if you have any type of question or want to explore an idea and want to share with us, please tweet us at 88.
Are you about to give a phone number?
888.
555 123. It was.
Letters.
That's fine.
I'm trying to find the thing. I don't have the thing. Okay. It's in the description down below. Our Twitter handle at we_sober. Follow us, join us on Twitter, reaction, respond back to us, leave us a comment after the show, or join us in the after show. We'll discuss it. Okay. Thank you all for tuning in. Multi, Justin, Rallon, ʻOllieman, Jena, thank you for your questions and your responses. See you all next